2 months ago, Zucks spent $14 billion buying 49% of Scale AI, a San Francisco-based data annotation startup that started in 2016. History shows that whenever there's a new tech trend Zucks isn't on top of, he either shamelessly copies whatever his competitors are doing, or he throws an ungodly amount of money at it. Like the $20 billion he spent on WhatsApp and Instagram, or the $60 billion he basically burnt trying to build the metaverse. Now large language models are the new shiny toy Zuck has his eye on. The only problem is that the meta team sucks at AI. Their best LLM, Llama-3.1-405B-Instruct-BF16, currently ranks 49th in the world for LLMs and absolutely last on the creative name scoreboard. To solve this, in classic Zuck fashion, he's throwing billions of dollars at the problem, from paying AI developers $100 million salaries to spending billions buying AI startups. But considering how LLMs are progressing and how Elon's state-of-the-art Grok 4 is approaching its learning, Meta might have just flushed $14 billion down the drain by investing in Scale AI. In this video, I'm going to explain what Scale AI is, why Meta thought it would be a good idea to invest $14 billion in Scale AI, and why this could be Meta's biggest mistake in the AI race so far. Let's get into it. Scale AI is a data annotation startup. It was started in 2016 by two college dropouts, Alexander Wang and Lucy Guo. Unlike most college dropouts, their startup actually does something, and even made them the world's youngest billionaires at 28 and 30 years old. So what exactly does Scale AI do? Simply put, they do data, but there's more to it than that. When it comes to training AI, there's three important components: chips, energy, and data. For this video, forget about the chips and energy, we're focusing on the data. To train an LLM, AI companies are trying to teach computers how to understand and generate human language, and they do this by feeding their models with as much human knowledge as possible. This is obviously where the internet comes into it. The issue though is that the internet's full of a lot of shit. So to prevent LLMs from giving shitty responses, they're trained on a filtered version of the internet, and that's where Scale AI comes in. They basically act as a quality control checkpoint between the internet and LLMs. So AI companies like OpenAI, Google, and Meta scrape trillions of words from the internet, and then Scale AI takes the raw, messy data and manually reviews everything in order to clean it. Doesn't end there though. First, they clean the data, but then they help train LLMs to respond to prompts the right way in different scenarios through a process called reinforcement learning from human feedback, or RLHF. So you might ask the LLM, what is a dog? There's basically an infinite number of ways to answer this question. So maybe it says, a dog is a wonderful, loving friend who will always be happy to see you. Or maybe it says dogs are just loud animals that annoy people. Or maybe something as bland as it's an animal that barks. They're all at least partially true, so how do we then train the model to know what kind of answer we're most looking for? One of the things we do when giving feedback is add scores across criteria to every answer. Perhaps how helpful the answer was, how truthful the answer was, and how harmless the answer was. And they'll probably even add in a comment for more human-like feedback. So take this first answer. It's somewhat helpful, somewhat truthful, and relatively harmless. And you might comment, positive and friendly, but slightly subjective. Good for a casual tone, less so for an encyclopedic answer. This one would be very low helpfully, pretty low truthfully, and not very harmless as it could drastically taint someone's view of dogs. Contains a negative bias and oversimplifies. Not factually wrong that dogs can be loud, but misleading and unhelpful. You get the idea. We collect the data, we clean the data, we feed the data to the AI models, and then we provide feedback in order to get the results we want. And that's essentially what Scale AI supposedly does best. But does that justify the $14 billion price tag for 49% of the company? Before we go any further, I want to quickly tell you about Chat LLM from Abacus AI, the sponsor of today's video. I've recently been using their awesome tool Chat LLM to help me with my workflow. The main reason I like it so much is because it has all the most powerful large language models in the same place. I used to have multiple ChatGPT tabs, a Gemini tab, sometimes even a Midjourney tab. Now I have all of that within Chat LLM. And so as you can see here, I'll put in a prompt like explain to me how AI companies like Scale AI train large language models, and Root LLM will direct the query to the LLM it thinks will do the best job, in this case GPT 4.1. And if I don't like the answer, I can then ask it to regenerate using GPT-5, Claude Sonnet, or any other model really. The other thing I'm loving to use is their deep agent. I wanted to make sure that the content in this video was up to date and accurate, so I asked for it to produce me a research report on Scale AI relevant to Meta's acquisition. It then asked me some follow-up questions to be as accurate as possible, and in a fairly short time span, it gave me an incredibly detailed report with 2 pages worth of references for me to dive deeper on. The best thing about it though is that it's only $10 a month, so it's literally cheaper than any of these LLMs individually, let alone put together. Visit chatllm.abacus.ai. Click the link in the description to check them out. A big thanks to the Abacus team for sponsoring the channel. Now let's get back to the video. It's essentially a bet on humans. Their logic is as follows. Most LLMs pretty much know everything on the internet. So the reason why models like GPT-4 perform so much better than Llama isn't because GPT-4 knows more stuff. It's because it communicates in a clearer, more natural, more accurate, human-like way, which comes down to the amount of reinforced human feedback it's been trained on. At least that's what Zucks believes. So they've essentially placed a $14 billion bet buying the world's best human feedback infrastructure to reinforce the hell out of Llama, which is exactly why it might have been one of Zuck's biggest mistakes yet. There's a new trend beginning to emerge in the world of AI training, a trend that would essentially render scale AI obsolete, and that's synthetic data and brute force training. Here's the problem. LLMs have run out of quality human-generated information on the internet to train on. Every major AI company, OpenAI, Google, Meta, XAI, have all admitted they've scraped and trained their models on virtually every single Wikipedia page, news article, academic paper, and book on the entire internet.
The cumulative sum of human knowledge has been exhausted in AI training. That happened basically last year.
And yet, we haven't reached AGI. So what's next?
The only way to then supplement that is with synthetic data, where the AI creates, it'll sort of write an essay, or it'll come up with a thesis, and then it will grade itself, and sort of go through this process of self-learning.
So essentially, XAI's smartest models are no longer relying on human-generated knowledge to train on, and are beginning to create knowledge of its own in order to continue learning. And this is where Zuck's bet on human feedback starts to look a lot like a bet on a horse carriage company right before Henry Ford started mass producing the Model T. On one side, you've got Scale AI, who outsources their labor-intensive business model to hundreds of thousands of Indians, Filipinos, and whoever else they can pay $2 an hour to manually review AI responses. And on the other side, you've got Grok, whose overlord just provided it with more than 200,000 GPUs, connected it to the internet, and told it to go learn on its own. It's the exact same pattern we saw with AI in chess. In the early days, we told AI the rules of chess and then attempted to teach it about human strategy, our favorite openings, middle game strategy, and endgame tactics.
Then he sacrificed the rook!
This didn't get us so far, and the best humans in the world could still beat these chess models. Why? Because humans aren't as special and intelligent as we think we are. What worked better? We changed the strategy to simply tell the AI the rules of chess and let it play itself billions of times over. And now we have chess models on our phones that Magnus Carlsen can't even beat. It's the exact same thing. There was a research paper called The Bitter Lesson written by Rick Sutton back in 2019 explaining why this approach to AI training is better, and it essentially comes back to the basics of Moore's law. For anyone who doesn't know, Moore's law says that the number of transistors on an integrated circuit roughly doubles about every 2 years, leading to an exponential increase in computing power and often a decrease in cost per computation. Now, while technically speaking we're beginning to approach the limits of Moore's law, the general principle is still in play with overall technological improvement. Our computational power just keeps getting better. So 3 years ago, when ChatGPT first appeared on the scene, yeah, maybe we did need human learning reinforcement feedback, but a couple years of computational growth can lead to an absolutely massive amount of change. Here's some stats to put it in perspective. On the ARC AGI-2 benchmark, a complex reasoning test, Grok 4 scored 15.9%, while GPT-5, trained with all that expensive human supervision, scored 9.9%. On humanities' last exam, a brutal 2,500 question test covering PhD level math, science, and humanities, Grok 4 destroyed the competition, scoring 38.6% and 44.4% in heavy mode, while Google's Gemini scored 26.9% and O3 scored 24.9%. On the American Invitational Mathematics examination, Grok 4 got a perfect 100%. Meanwhile, other AI models were still making basic algebra mistakes. For those of you who didn't make it past 5th grade algebra, the answer should be 0.79. Essentially, Zucks just placed a $14 billion bet that humans would always be essential for training smart AI models. Even if he's right for 1 year, maybe even 2, do you really think he's going to be right forever? Or is there inevitably going to be a point where AI can simply teach and train itself better than humans ever possibly could? They didn't end up fighting in the Colosseum, but they're definitely fighting tooth and nail in the race to build artificial superintelligence. Zucks has placed his bet on humans, and Elon's betting on the power of compute. Who do you think's gonna win? Hope you enjoyed the video. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.